What if the reason your child doesn't listen isn't defiance at all, but one small moment right before you speak? Most parents naturally believe that to get cooperation, we need firmer words, clearer consequences, or repeating ourselves until it finally lands. And maybe those tools have a place, but what if they miss something quieter? Because when a child feels rushed, cornered, or emotionally flooded, the brain tends to shift into protection mode, and the part that tracks language and choices can temporarily fade into the background. That's why the same sentence can work beautifully one day and fall flat the next. So if this feels familiar, like and subscribe, and we'll keep going gently together. In a moment, I'll show you a handful of tiny shifts that can change the whole tone without threats. Number 1. The one beat before you speak. You're standing in the kitchen, you say it once and your child keeps moving, so you feel the heat rise in your chest. What happens if you pause for a single beat before the next word? That tiny gap can be the difference between your message landing or sliding right off. In that beat, your face, your posture, your breath, all of it speaks first, louder than the sentence. Kids don't only hear instructions, they read safety, pressure, hurry, and mood in a flash. When the moment feels sharp, their brain leans into protection, and language becomes harder to take in. That's why repeating often adds noise instead of clarity, especially when everyone's already tight inside. Sometimes the smallest shift is simply letting your body soften first, so your words don't arrive like a chase. And once that beat is there, the next step becomes less about control and more about connection. Number 2, get eye level without making it heavy. Stay with this and you'll feel fewer power struggles because a small change in distance can quietly invite listening without a single threat. Not because your child suddenly gets better, but because the moment starts to feel easier to enter. From above, words can accidentally sound like a wall. From closer, they can sound like an offer. Eye level doesn't have to be intense or serious. It can be quick, light, almost ordinary. A soft face, a calm tone, a gentle pause. These are tiny signals that say, "You're safe with me," even while the boundary stays. When children feel watched over instead of watched down, they often need less defending. You might notice that attention comes faster when your presence feels steady, not towering. And once you're in the same space together, saying less becomes possible because you're no longer trying to reach them from far away. Number 3, say less but make it clearer. More words can make children listen less, even when every word is kind. Sometimes the longer we explain, the more the message blurs, like a radio station with too much static. In busy moments, a child's brain can only hold a little language at a time, especially if they're excited, tired, or already mid-play. When we stack sentences, they don't hear helpful detail, they hear a flood. And in that flood, they may grab the only part that feels manageable, pushing back, delaying, or pretending not to hear. Clarity often sounds simple. One idea, one direction, one calm tone that doesn't chase them around the room. You might be surprised how cooperation grows when your voice stays steady and your sentence stays short. Then the next piece gets even more interesting because the very first words you choose can set the whole emotional temperature. Number 4, the first 5 words matter most. What if your child decides whether to cooperate before you even finish the sentence, right in the first few words? Those opening words can sound like an invitation or like a push even when you don't mean it that way. Kids are incredibly sensitive to how something begins, the pace, the edge, the urgency, the feeling underneath. A start that feels sudden can wake up resistance fast because their brain hears pressure before their mind hears meaning. That's why a simple request can trigger an instant no, not because they're being difficult, but because the opening felt like a shove into a corner. Softening the start can look like naming the moment, asking for eyes for 1 second, or using a gentle hey that doesn't demand attention. When the beginning feels safe, the rest of the message has room to land. And once the opening is steadier, the next shift becomes easier too, because some words, like listen, can carry more weight than we realize. Number 5, replace listen to me with one neutral cue. We're often told to say, "listen to me," firmly, but for many kids, that phrase can feel like a spotlight and a squeeze at the same time. Even when you're calm, listen can sound like, "stop what you're doing and prove you're good right now." A child's body may respond with freeze, wiggle, avoidance, or sudden silliness, not to disrespect you, but to escape that pressure. Neutral cues work differently because they don't ask for performance, they simply guide the next step. Think of the way a gentle routine phrase can carry a child from one moment to the next, like a familiar bridge. When cues stay consistent, children don't have to argue with the words, they recognize the rhythm. This is where dignity stays intact. You're not forcing attention, you're guiding the moment. And once the rhythm is there, choices start to matter, because the way you offer them can either open cooperation or quietly spark a battle. If what you've heard so far already feels a little different in your body, like things could get calmer without getting stricter, then the next 5 shifts will matter even more. We're going to move into choices that don't feel like traps, the tiny wording change that keeps boundaries firm without hardening the room, and how to describe the moment so your child can return to you without losing face. We'll also look at the kind of follow-through that doesn't rely on threats, and what to do when none of it works in that exact moment without spiraling into another round of repeating. These are the pieces that tend to change the pattern, not just the next 5 minutes. So if you want the rest, follow the channel and turn on notifications, because the next part might be the one you come back to on the hard days.